we're back, and I'm actually back again because I messed up the first time I did this introduction. So I'm back. Pastor Jeff here for another episode of Anytime is Good. I believe this is episode 5. And I have one of my close friends, my quote unquote bro, Mr. Clay Bulkholder. He is here with me. The way I know Clay, unlike my first several guests for the first several episodes, were all individuals, guys I went to seminary with who have been serving as pastors for 15, 16 years now, and Lutheran on top of it. Clay is my homie from a different, my brother from another ecclesiastical mother. And that is Clay and I met through riding motorcycles. Clay is actually my partner in starting, we will be launching officially coming later this spring, hopefully, a motorcycle ministry. It's called Mistakes Were Made, and I think that's beautiful. So Clay's here. He is in seminary. He is not Lutheran, so we're going to get, and he's what church people call young. Okay, so he's not old like me or the rest of us. He is young. So I'm going to kind of dive into some of those areas. Without further ado, Clay, 6 questions. Okay, they're going to come at you. We're going to tackle them. I'm coming out the gate hot.
Oh boy.
All gas, no brakes, just out of the gate hot. And if you stick around, for anybody watching, if you stick around to the very end of this episode, Clay is going to go over he's going to share with me a recipe for potato soup that his grandmother taught him, and it's been a family tradition for generations. So hold on for that. Okay, question number 1. Like I said, this one's rough, all right? But I want you to be honest, because we need to hear this. Let me preface it, whether it's in the church, whether it's in news articles, just different stories we hear in the church, the younger generation, their involvement or lack of involvement in the church, organized institutions. So as a young person, why do you think people in your generation have little to no interest in church?
You are coming out of the gate hot. I appreciate that.
I mean,
thank you.
I just want to cut right to it.
I get it. So first off, I will say thank you. I'm honored to be on the show. Okay, it is the highest of honors. And while I don't think I'm able to answer for an entire generation of churchgoers,
okay, I'll let you scale.
I can't answer for everyone, but I can say that there are a few general things that, let's put it that way, general things that I have noticed just in my time in the church. One of those things is a lack of authenticity. That's a big thing. Your audience doesn't know my background like you do. I've had a lot of really poor experiences in the church, and I'm still here and I'm still excited to serve. So let me preface it with that. But right. I think a lack of authenticity where the church, at least in a lot of my experiences, has put on a sort of a mask to kind of cover up a lack of some things that are there, right? So I grew up very fundamental. I was very fundamental Baptist. And it always felt like, we were so focused on the outward appearances. You have to wear your Sunday best, or, you have to look a certain way, you speak a certain way. And if you don't fit into that mold, you're really not welcome. And to me, right, especially as, going through seminary, being a quote unquote younger person looking in a ministry, it's hard for me to see and experience things like that and to also tie that back into the love of Christ. If we can't love people who look different than us, if we can't love people who don't have the same experiences that we have, I don't know how effectively we can really say that we're communicating the love of Christ. And that's been a big problem for me. Another problem has been a lack of accountability, especially in leadership. I found repeatedly that the church is kind of a hideaway for narcissists and people who want to have a safe space to do whatever they want. And the church has kind of allowed that. And I'm speaking of the church very generally. There are amazing churches, right? And I fully believe that. And there are amazing leaders. But I've just also experienced that when there's a lack of accountability and vulnerability with your congregation, it leads to cover-ups. It leads to abuses of power. Instead of the church being focused on Christ as a body, it's focused on me, and I'm taking Christ's message and I'm putting it through the filter of myself and giving it to people. And to me, that's a big problem. And I think a lot of people in my generation, right, we're growing up in an environment that is so self-centered, so digital, right? Like I grew up with phones, with a cell phone, with things that I didn't have to interact necessarily with people to have a relationship with them. And so we're already growing up in an environment that is so egotistical, so self-centered. I think the problem is that the church has become individual in a lot of aspects as well. And we're catering to that individualism. We're not trying to separate that. We're not trying to say that that's, you know, that's probably not the best way to do it. We're catering to the individuals. Again, I'm still early in seminary for your audience. I'm only like a year and a half in, but as part of my faith journey, I've been a part of probably 6 or 7 different denominations. And I don't want to say shopping around, but really, like when I was younger, that's what I did. And that's the consumerist mindset. I shopped around. I looked for, well, what do I like here? Do I like the worship here? Do I like the message here? Do I like the theology? Instead of being planted in a church and trying to focus on growing that community, it was shopping around. And I think that's a lot of what people in my generation are doing. And I think it's encouraged by what the church does. So what is the church's response to the consumerist mindset that a lot of young people are bringing to the table? Well, let's have a young people's group, right? Let's do something that young people are going to like. You know, it's like,
so it's in part of this, you know, I think this episode is different from the other ones that I've obviously really enjoyed, and we get a different perspective of pastors. That I can be, as to tie back to what you're saying earlier, I can be authentic to myself, and you and I obviously have connected and there's a lot of similarities we share, but my life experience is different than your life experience. There are certain things that the church is coming at from my generation and generations above us, saying, how do we engage with this group, as opposed to just engaging with the group.
Right.
Like we're trying to figure out the best marketing model, the best programs, and we're like studying you guys, even trying to figure out like, all right, how do we target these people? Which is like the other side of the consumerism. We're looking at it like a business and say, how do we get your business in our church, as opposed to collectively we've fallen into the trap, like the consumers have and the church has. So that's a lot of untangling to do.
I think a lot of it is attempts at producing authenticity, but it's artificial. But something that I've experienced that I've really appreciated is when people from an older generation, you know, like a generation later than mine, are willing to come next to people and just do life with them. Right. Like when you're willing to walk with me, and you're willing to go through the struggles that I have, and you know, when I need advice, I'm going to ask for it. Right. Because when we have that relationship built together, I feel comfortable enough to come to you and ask. Right. If you're just a person in a pastoral role, it's hard to trust someone when they're just in that position, going up to that person without having a relationship with them, whether they're, you know, your pastor, an elder in the church, or just an older member, is difficult at times. But I think when we're living life together, when we're experiencing that walk together, it allows me to kind of learn from you and to build a relationship on trust, right? I'm seeing the authenticity by the way you live.
I could spend all day on that question, but so we move on. And I forgot to say, because I know I'm going to put up the graphic, I forgot to say you're on ex cathedra on the hot seat, but I came in so hot, I just completely forgot. That'll pop up on the screen later. Okay, question 2. You're in seminary. Your sense of call, was it something that you felt an immediate just, oh my gosh, I think I'm supposed to be a pastor? Or was it something that you gradually felt over time?
That's a pretty easy one, I would say. I think it's more of a gradual for me. I felt kind of like I was called into ministry back when I was a kid. Again, I was in a very fundamental background, so a lot of those feelings were kind of repressed because I didn't like my experiences early on. So I pushed those as far away from me as I could. But I always had kind of that, like, the tug, like
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
supposed to be doing this. It wasn't until I got into college ministry during my time in my undergrad where I started to really build into that calling, and it turned from a tug into a pull into a full on, this is what you're called to do. Like, this is all happening, of course, my senior year of college, when I think that
right.
I'm
Well, you
gonna
were
be,
going on a different path.
yeah,
And now
right. I get my undergrad in criminal justice, and God's like, psych, maybe you should have listened before. Here you go. No, it was definitely gradual, and I think, as I experience seminary, it just deepens it. It gives me more of a passion and an understanding for why it is that that this is what I'm called to do. My thing is, like, I tried everything to not do it.
right.
Okay, at a certain point, like you're saying, like, it's an absolute, like, it's not even really a choice.
Right. Yeah.
Most of the other thing, I try and do other things, and it's just not nearly as fulfilling as being able to do ministry.
All right. Question 3. What is something you believe that is essential for the church in the future? Like either a practice, a belief?
I think so. One of the things I hear a lot is just like how much the church is dying right now. Like, everybody just talks about, like, the church is dying.
Yep. It's a
Okay.
foregone
Like,
conclusion. Yeah.
yeah, great. So you've pointed out a problem and nobody ever has a solution. So something I think that the church needs to return to is community-based ministry. So if your church was, and I'm not a minister, so, like, any pastors who listen to this, just know I'm speaking from a place that I don't have any experience with this. So it's way easier for me to say it because I haven't experienced what you've experienced. Okay.
That's
So
okay. We've all been there. We've been there. So one of the things I'll say, like, through our conversations that we have that I love so much, and it's actually helped me grow, is I think a lot of us do start off in the place that you're at.
Mhm.
And we allow ourselves over time, because of things in ministry, things in our own lives, we allow ourselves to be chipped away at,
Mhm.
and we get away from that thing that was that initial calling. And so you haven't had that experience yet, but I would say that whatever you're going to say is probably going to bring me and any other pastors that end up watching this kind of back to the roots of, yeah, that's why I got into it. So don't be shy. It's your opinion. People know. I'll include your email address in this.
Please do.
Send hate mail.
My address, my regular address would be nice too, so they can show up.
Regular email, and if you have a fax machine,
Oh,
I'll figure out the number for that. And yeah, we'll get everything. Yeah.
No, but I was gonna say, if your church was gone tomorrow, would the people in your community miss you?
Mhm.
Would they even know that you weren't there anymore? Or would you just be another empty church building? Time and time again, I always think, like, are we just catering to the congregation that we already have and the people that we have, and are trying to make them happy? Or are we dug into the community to the point where people know us? So often churches focus on how many people can we convert, right? This goes back to, like, the early people, like, are not early people, young people. Sorry, the young people conversation.
Early in life. Yeah.
Early in life, young, whatever. Like, we're so focused on, like, catering to the consumerism that we forget the best way, in my opinion, to help save people, to help commit people to the cause of Christ, is through a relational ministry, like St. Patrick's ministry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how his focus was on, I'm just going to set up next to a community, right? I'm not going to go into the town and preach gloom and doom. I'm going to set up next to the community. I'm going to do life with these people. And when they want to come, they'll come. When they see that what we preach is what we do, they'll start to get it. They'll understand that something is different about these people than the last people that came to us and told us that, we're going to hell if we don't, change our ways, or you don't look the part, you need to change the way that you look. We have to embed ourselves in the world, because if we pretend like we're some disjointed community that's separate from the rest of the world, that's exactly how people are going to see us. If we can get back to that, I think that will change young people like me's opinion of what the church is, because the church won't be a place of hurt anymore. It's a place of healing that is made to heal people.
All right. Well, you haven't failed yet. You're close, dangerously, but not yet. This one's either going to put you in the right path or it's going to take you down into hell. It's
Oh
one
boy. Oh
All right.
boy.
Question 4. What is your favorite Bible story or verse?
For your audience, I have a lot of ink on my body.
Yeah.
So I like to make sure that those are all, I wouldn't say that it's like a sacred activity, but tattooing for me is one of those very personal things that I do to reflect my faith. And right now, and for the past like 3 years, I think my biggest one has been Moses in the burning bush, because for a lot of my life, I have dealt with a lot of self-doubt. I'm not good enough. I'm not skilled enough. I'm not worthy enough. All of these things that are excuses that I've put in the way of ministry and
Right.
of pursuing that calling. Because God, Moses puts all of his excuses in front of God. And God's like, dude, I already took care of it, man. I know that you might struggle with self-confidence. I know that you have, these different issues. I've already taken care of it. I serve a perfect God, thank goodness. And he loves me enough that despite my imperfections, he still calls me. God is like a refiner of silver.
Yeah.
Right. He is refining you. He's taking out the impurities. That to me is just, it's like, wow, okay. I'm a work in progress, but God still loves me even then.
All right, number 5. This is before you get to 6, okay? Because that's just the way numbers work. All right.
Yes.
So just in case you were wondering, I don't know for your generation how numbers work.
I need my calculator, but I understand.
5, then you're at 6. All right. When you contemplate the church as of right now, and you anticipate your ministry going forward, is there something that you think will be your biggest challenge personally? I'm not saying like for the entire church, oh, we have to do this, but for you personally, is there something that you look and go, you know what, this is where I'm going to need God's help the most?
Really challenge myself to be as self-aware as possible. Like, I think that's an important part of being a leader, is being able to like reflect on who you are and how you act and the way you think and things like that. One of the big things I think that I can fall into a trap of is thinking that I know the right way. Like I can sit in a room and I can lead a group of people and I can say like, this is what we're going to do. I think this is a great strategy, or this is a great program, or this is a great whatever, right?
Well, which makes with people that are watching that don't know you, for my audience, is Clay just got finished, but he also was a second lieutenant in the U.S. Army. So that's a great gift as an officer, to be able to look at the situation and adapt however you need to accomplish
as quickly as you can and as effectively as you can, right? In the military, that's great. As I go into ministry from the military, I have to rewire the way that I think to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that are helpful from the military. There's a lot of things that are not helpful. So I can't look at people like I look at my privates, right? My soldiers.
You say soldiers instead of privates.
Yeah.
It'll come off differently when you say, if I look at my privates.
I didn't think about that. Now it makes more sense. I should not have used that phrasing. Yes. The way that I look at my soldiers, and that's not as less than human. It's just the idea of, I know better than you, and I'm making this decision for your good. So you're going to do what I say, and you're not going to ask questions. You're not going to sit here and quiz me on all of the different reasons why I came to the decision that I did. You're just going to do it. Right. And there's going to be times where I suck at planning and it's going to fail, and the blame will go back on me and it'll roll downhill. But that's just the reality of the military.
Right.
Whereas in ministry, I have to take a step back and say, if someone is trying to help me, right? If one of my elders is coming to me and they're saying, Clay, I think we need to rethink this. Maybe it's a good idea, but how about we take a step back and we think about it for a little bit? I can be so gung-ho at times for an idea that I've come up with that it's like I have blinders on.
Right.
You don't see what's happening in the periphery. So yeah, I think that's one of the biggest challenges. My
Gee,
Star Wars quote for this interview: "You became the thing you swore to destroy."
all right. It's great. You're now to the question. I want to, number 6. I don't want to say there's a wrong answer or there's no wrong answer, because if you do answer incorrectly, I will flash it on the screen. Wrong answer, wrong answer. So just be aware of that.
Okay.
But there's a lot of latitude in this. Okay. So as I stated in the beginning, for anyone who's watched from Alpha to Omega here, that Clay and I, we're motorcycle individuals. Jesus is hanging out with us, shows up. I show up on my bike, 2009, Harley Davidson Road King Classic. You show up on your current bike, 2008, Harley Davidson Street Bob 107, Stage 2. What kind of bike does Jesus ride?
I mean, he did ride a donkey, right? So like,
It's like
this
a
isn't his second
200.
coming, right? He's not coming back on an electric glide. He's still walking in humility. Let's say, I don't even know if it's necessarily a Harley, honestly. I don't know.
I'm gonna act like you didn't say that, but we're gonna keep going with it.
I bet he's on a 650 Shadow.
That's a humble bike.
Yeah,
That's a humble
I think
bike.
that's it. Like a donkey.
All right. It's
Not a
it's
wrong
bulletproof
answer.
engine. It's a bulletproof engine. It's gonna last. Yeah, it's not wrong. As much as I used to rip on Harley people, and I used to rip on Harley people because I'd be like, oh my gosh, you guys are the worst. It's like people that do CrossFit that won't shut up about
Right.
CrossFit. Yeah.
But your point stands, because my first bike was a Harley. Like
And-
years I went metric, and I still ended up back in Harley after doing the same thing.
You
As
get
soon
it.
as I sat on that Street Bob,
You were like, yep, this is it.
I was like, yep, that's okay. That's
I
just
get it.
the one.
I get it.
Just for the audience, I'm 5'5" because I'm an idiot and I have ape hangers, like 18-inch apes. Yeah, I'm like this.
He looks like he's being crucified on it. Basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm still in love with my bike, so.
All right. So I want to say thank you to my brosif, Clay, for doing this. You gave insight into your experience. You're mature beyond your years, and you have a beautiful head of hair and beard that just makes me envious and happy for you all at the same time. So thank you for doing this. Prayers, obviously, from anybody who watches this, for your ministry, for you as you go through seminary. And my main prayer for you as a fellow individual who is walking this path in ministry is that you don't lose that fire, don't you lose that spark of, this is what I'm called to do. This is why I'm called to do it. Don't let the church or the world or anybody else or self-doubt take it away. Bless you, sir, and I hope you had a good time.
Oh, it was awesome. Thank you, brother, for having me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.